Hello, BookTube. Sorry I missed Wednesday Comics. Wednesday itself, I was really busy, and then I had a guest over. An actual human guest over, and that just consumed the whole day. I never got around to doing anything. And didn't. And then Thursday, because of Wednesday, Thursday was incredibly backed up in every possible way. So I didn't do anything I didn't make any videos on Thursday. But I'm back now, and of course, Wednesday did have a comic book in it. And if you're a Superman fan, it wasn't just any comic book. It was a totally unprecedented milestone. It was Action Comics number 1,000. Number 1,000. 1,000 issues of Action Comics with a Jim Lee cover of Superman in front of the Daily Planet, in front of the skyline of Metropolis. And those of you who have been reading Superman lately, or listening to me complain about Superman lately, about 5 or 6 years ago, DC did a company-wide reboot and changed the costume of Superman. He no longer had his red trunks. He had weird pipping and plating, like he was wearing armor all over him. He had a popped Nehru collar, and it was atrocious. You don't change Superman's costume. And gradually, very gradually over time, the collar sort of de-emphasized, and the boots sort of started to look normal. But the one-piece jumpsuit, the all blue from head to toe jumpsuit, stayed the same. And there was no good way to draw it. As many artists complained when they were off mic at comic conventions, there's no good way to draw it without making it all penis all the time. The whole point, believe it or not, of having bright red trunks is to de-emphasize, not to emphasize. But a certain kernel of psychotic Superman fans held out for the return of the red trunks. And you couldn't get it any clearer. You don't even need to open the issue to see. But this is a celebration of Superman. It starts off with Metropolis throwing a big event, the city of Metropolis throwing a big event to thank Superman for all of his help. And that is one story by Dan Jurgens, a Superman writer and artist who I've never understood why people like his work, but they do. And then the book goes on to just be a tribute to Superman. There are big pin-up pages that sort of, see, look at that. So technically advance a kind of skeleton story, but really they're just there to show you how a whole bunch of different artists would interpret the character. Let me get you another one. There's some that are so good here. Actually, the whole issue is just remarkably good. Just considering that things like this, productions, there's the great Walt Simonson. Productions like this are often hit or miss, and this was all hit, except for the very end, but I'll get to that. But the editors of the book brought back some great Superman artists. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez has a bit in here. He's fantastic, an iconic Superman artist. Didn't do enough Superman artwork. Also, Jerry Ordway, who DC just brought out a big, thick hardcover collection of Ordway's Superman, he does a really classic style Superman, and he's in here. And then also Oliver Coipel, who's most famous, I think, for his, for me anyway, for his artwork on Marvel's relaunch of Thor a long time ago, long before it was Lady Thor. Just terrific artwork. He's one of those artists that gets better every time he does a major piece, and he has probably the best little story in here, but also, totally unbeknownst to me, I didn't read anything about this issue before I got it. Totally a surprise to me. Totally made me choke up on the subway when I was reading it. An old Curt Swan comic, just 8 pages, is revived and redone in here. Curt Swan was, in my opinion, the greatest Superman artist of them all, and he has a bit in here. This is Action Comics number 1,000, and they didn't leave Curt Swan out, which is just awesome. Look at that. There he is, the Man of Steel. And then the issue ends with a little teaser, which is drawn by Jim Lee and written by Brian Michael Bendis. And the teaser bit is because Brian Michael Bendis is a famous Marvel Comics writer, and he has moved over to DC, and they gave him Superman. So he's going to be writing Superman, and I have heard all sorts of rumors about the changes that he is going to make to Superman, and I don't like any of them. This is a writer who does often make changes, big fundamental changes. And there's an 8-page teaser at the end of this that ends with a cliffhanger, where Superman is getting the crap beaten out of him by an alien Rockhold Czar, with just a big, pro forma evil alien bad guy, who's going on and on about how this isn't really a fight, this is a cleansing, that it's his job to cleanse the universe of Kryptonians, and that the little teaser ends with him saying, "I'm going to kill you and your cousin Supergirl just the way I killed the planet Krypton." And I don't know, there's a part of me that's really hoping that the powers that be at DC Comics did not give Brian Michael Bendis permission to rewrite the destruction of Krypton, because that would really, really annoy me. The classic tenets of Superman mythology, including the tights, should be untouchable. Tell your story some other way. Tell some other story. If you're not good enough to do that, well, then pass the job to somebody who is. But I've known writers who could tell 4, 5, 6 solid years of Superman stories without ever coming anywhere near any of those basic tenets, and still tell great stories. If you can't do that, if you need to relitigate the destruction of Krypton, then anyway, I wish that DC, if that's true, we don't know because it ends in a cliffhanger, and then there's a multi-part miniseries, and that's dreadful on its own right, because the last time there was a Stop Everything, Here's a Star who's going to do a multi-part 6-issue miniseries called Man of Steel, it was the artist and writer John Byrne who did such enormous hammer blows of sacrilege to the character and his continuity that it took literally decades to recover. Now, the New 52 revamp of Superman, with the popped collar and the a-hole attitude and the no red shorts, that version of Superman, it took very little time for DC to sort of walk that back, to slowly reiterate the old Superman. I would like to think that the people in the boardrooms who make these decisions at DC would realize, if you let Brian Michael Bendis completely redo the destruction of Krypton, or anything else for that matter, you're eventually going to have to bring it back to the status quo anyway. Fans don't want you to radically redesign or reimagine Superman. They want the character they've always known, and you just tell great stories in addition to that. I'd like to think they know that, and that no matter what kind of a superstar he is, they won't let him do it. But we shall see. We shall see. But aside from that teaser at the end, the thing that surprised me about this issue was how traditional it is. How incredibly traditional it is. Superman saves ordinary people. He inspires people. He's not cynical. There's even a wonderful 8-page bit with him and Lex Luthor talking as the kind of friend/enemy they are when they're portrayed at their best. It's been spotty and it's not always consistent, but the best portrayals are where they grow up in Smallville together, and were once friends and kinda sorta want to be friends still. I think that's wonderful, and it fits with the Superman mythology, whereas with something like Batman and the Joker, you want them to be bloodthirsty enemies. So much enemies that they can't even concentrate on anything else when they're around each other. You want that to be true, but that doesn't feel right for Superman. It feels better for his arch enemy to be someone he's always hoping will come around, if he can maybe work a little harder to make them come around. So that's those of you who haven't already got this issue. If you're a Superman fan, you absolutely have to have Action Comics number 1000. I mean, come on. And it was funny because in the comic shop they had a line of alternate covers. There are tons and tons of alternate covers for the collectors. And I asked the bored, gum-snapping teenager at the counter to stand up straight because I'm an adult and a paying customer. Oh, no, I didn't ask her that because she wouldn't do it. It may not even be anatomically possible for her to stand up straight anymore. No, she was slumped over the counter like she was half dead. But I asked her, just because I make conversation, because I'm a pleasant man, I asked her, have you had collectors come in here and just buy one of every one of these? And she said, yeah. Anyway, I'm not a collector, so I just grabbed this the way it is. But I highly recommend this issue. This is classic Superman. I don't know what's coming. I think it would be very ironic if DC gave us classic Superman for Action Comics number 1000, only to hand the reins over to someone who intends to demolish classic Superman, but we shall see. I'll report back. But that's my Wednesday comics. A little bit delayed, so sorry about that. I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.